Ferrari may have just built the fastest illegal Formula One idea of the modern era. And now the FIA is preparing to destroy it. Not next season. Right now. Behind closed doors, reports claim Ferrari could lose almost half a second per lap if the FIA bans the system that made the SF26 dangerous. Half a second. In Formula One, that is the difference between fighting for pole position and disappearing into the midfield. But this gets even worse, because Ferrari is not fighting just one investigation. They are fighting two. The FIA is already moving to ban Ferrari's controversial halo wing after rivals raised concerns about driver visibility and safety. At the exact same time, the FIA is also discussing restrictions on Ferrari's blown exhaust system, the same innovation that multiple teams rushed to copy after Miami. And according to insiders, Frédéric Vasseur is furious, because Ferrari believes they are being punished for doing exactly what Formula One rewards most: finding the loophole before everybody else. But here is the part nobody is talking about yet. If Ferrari loses these systems while already suffering a massive engine deficit against Mercedes, the entire championship project for the SF26 could collapse much faster than anyone expected. And what happens next in Canada could decide Ferrari's future for the next 2 seasons. For Ferrari, this was supposed to be the turning point of the season. The moment everything finally started coming together. The new floor from Miami was working. Straight line speed improved dramatically. The car looked more stable in medium-speed corners. And for the first time in months, engineers inside the paddock started whispering something dangerous. Ferrari might actually be catching up. But then the FIA started looking closer. And suddenly, one tiny piece on top of the car became the center of a growing storm. The halo wing. At first glance, it looks almost invisible. Just a small aerodynamic surface attached to the center pillar above the cockpit. Most casual fans would never even notice it during a race broadcast. But in Formula One, the smallest detail can change everything. Because airflow is like water flowing around rocks in a river. Tiny changes create completely different currents downstream. Ferrari understood that better than anyone. The new 2026 Halo design gave teams a thinner central pillar. Ferrari realized the rules allowed a fairing to be attached there. So instead of treating it like a simple cover, they transformed it into an aerodynamic weapon. A legal gray area. And that gray area became incredibly valuable. The winglets redirected clean air toward the rear wing while also reducing dirty airflow around the sides of the car. That sounds technical, but the effect is simple. More efficiency. More rear stability. More speed without increasing drag. In Formula One terms, that is gold. And here is what made rivals nervous. Ferrari did not just stumble into this idea accidentally. They understood the regulations faster than everybody else. While other teams were still adapting to the new halo structure, Ferrari was already exploiting it. That is why the reaction inside the paddock became so intense after China. Because once one team discovers a loophole, every other team immediately asks the same question. How much performance are we losing if we do not copy this? And Formula One teams hate being late, especially against Ferrari. But this is where the story becomes much more complicated. During the Chinese Grand Prix, Ferrari quietly removed the original version after FIA discussions raised concerns over legality. Reports described the first design as borderline. That word matters. Borderline in Formula One usually means one thing. The FIA is warning you without officially punishing you. Ferrari understood the message immediately, so they redesigned the winglets. Softer edges, less aggressive shapes, just enough to stay alive legally while keeping most of the aerodynamic benefit. And then came Miami, the moment that exposed the tension inside Ferrari itself. Lewis Hamilton ran the updated Halo wing. Charles Leclerc did not. That split revealed something fascinating behind the scenes. Ferrari's own drivers were not fully aligned on whether the gain justified the potential scrutiny from the FIA. And honestly, that tells you how serious the situation already is. Because Formula One drivers hate uncertainty. If a driver believes a part could become controversial during a race weekend, confidence disappears instantly. And confidence in Formula One is everything. Especially before Canada. Because Montreal is not a forgiving circuit. Long straights, heavy braking zones, walls waiting inches away from the car. One tiny instability can destroy an entire weekend. And yet Ferrari still needs every possible advantage. Because behind all this political drama, another problem is quietly becoming impossible to ignore. The engine deficit. And that changes the entire meaning of this FIA battle. Ferrari can handle pressure. They can handle criticism. What they cannot handle is losing performance while their biggest rival already has more power. And according to multiple reports, that is exactly the situation they are trapped in right now. The Ferrari power unit is believed to be somewhere between 21 and 30 horsepower weaker than Mercedes. That gap may not sound enormous to casual fans, but in Formula One it is brutal. Imagine two runners starting a race together, except one of them is carrying a backpack full of bricks. Eventually, talent stops mattering. Physics wins. That is basically Ferrari's problem on long straights. And Canada is built around long straights, which suddenly makes the timing of this FIA controversy feel catastrophic for Ferrari, because the one thing helping offset their engine weakness was aerodynamic efficiency. The blown exhaust system, the halo wing, the new floor, all of it worked together like connected pieces of a puzzle. Remove one piece and the balance changes. Remove two and the entire concept starts collapsing. And this is where Fred Vasseur reportedly became extremely frustrated behind the scenes, because Ferrari believes they followed the rules exactly as written. That point matters more than people realize. Formula One teams are not rewarded for playing safe. They are rewarded for finding opportunities before everybody else notices them. That has always been the sport. Double diffusers, flexible wings, mass dampers, F-duct systems. Every championship era in Formula One history was built on somebody discovering a gray area first. Ferrari thought this was their moment, especially after rivals started copying the blown exhaust concept almost immediately. That detail tells you how effective the system probably is. Teams do not spend millions redesigning aerodynamic concepts unless the gain is massive. And according to reports, Ferrari's version may be worth nearly half a second per lap. Half a second. That number keeps haunting the paddock, because nobody can fully agree on what happens if Ferrari loses it. Some engineers believe the SF26 would instantly fall behind McLaren and Mercedes permanently. Others think Ferrari's integrated design philosophy means the damage could actually become worse over time as development paths disappear. And here is where things become politically explosive. The FIA reportedly cannot easily ban the blown exhaust system during the season without support from the teams themselves. That sounds simple, until you realize most of the grid already copied the idea. Mercedes has versions of it. McLaren explored it. Red Bull adapted around it. Alpine, Williams, Cadillac. Suddenly, almost everybody benefits from the exact thing the FIA wants to control. So now Formula One faces one of its favorite contradictions. Everybody complains publicly, but privately nobody wants to lose the advantage. And Ferrari knows it, which is why the atmosphere inside Maranello is becoming increasingly tense. Because from Ferrari's perspective, the FIA opened the door with vague regulations. Ferrari walked through it first, and now the governing body wants to close the door only after the rest of the paddock followed them through. That feels personal inside a team like Ferrari, especially during a season where every development decision already carries enormous risk. And the deeper engineers look into the future, the more dangerous the situation becomes. Because Ferrari is not just fighting for 2026 anymore. They are trying to protect the entire foundation of the next generation project. And this is where the story becomes bigger than one car. What makes this situation terrifying for Ferrari is not just the possible ban. It is the timing. Because the SF26 was never designed as a temporary project. Ferrari built this car as the beginning of a long-term philosophy. A platform meant to evolve into the next regulation cycle. And now, suddenly, two of the most important ideas on the car are under direct FIA pressure at the same time. That changes everything inside a Formula One factory. Because development in Formula One is like building a skyscraper while people keep changing the blueprint underneath you. Every aerodynamic surface connects to another part of the car. The floor affects airflow to the diffuser. The diffuser changes rear stability. Rear stability changes tire temperature. Tire temperature changes race pace. Nothing exists alone. Which means if Ferrari loses the blown exhaust system in the future, they may need to redesign far more than fans realize. And according to reports, Ferrari's version is more deeply integrated into the car than any rival system. That detail is massive. Mercedes copied the concept later. McLaren adapted parts of it later. But Ferrari built the SF26 around it from the beginning. Their aerodynamic correlation, setup philosophy, and airflow structures all evolved together with this solution. So banning it does not simply remove speed. It could force Ferrari to rethink the entire balance of the car. And there is another hidden danger most people are missing. Once engineers know a future ban is coming, development motivation changes immediately. Why spend millions improving a concept that may disappear next year? Why commit resources to upgrades that could become useless? Why continue refining something the FIA already wants to eliminate? That uncertainty slows everything down, and Formula One punishes hesitation brutally, especially against teams like Mercedes and McLaren, who already look more stable politically and technically. But Ferrari's nightmare does not end there, because while all this chaos is happening, the team is still dealing with one of the most dangerous problems any Formula One organization can face: a simulator correlation crisis. Reports suggest Ferrari's simulator data still does not consistently match real-world track performance. That may sound boring on the surface. It is not. It is catastrophic. Imagine trying to prepare for an exam using the wrong textbook. Every hour of preparation gives you confidence, until the real test begins and none of the answers match. That is what poor simulator correlation feels like for engineers. The team thinks an upgrade should work. Then the car reaches the track and the behavior changes completely. Balance shifts, tire degradation changes, corner entry becomes unstable. Suddenly, weeks of development become questionable. Now combine that problem with looming FIA restrictions. Ferrari engineers are trying to predict the future while already struggling to fully trust their present data. And this creates enormous internal pressure before Canada, because Montreal was supposed to be one of Ferrari's key races from the beginning of the season. Reports suggested the team always targeted Canada for another major evolution package after Miami. That means this weekend is no longer just another Grand Prix. It is becoming a test of Ferrari's entire direction. Can the SF26 still fight near the front if political pressure removes its biggest advantages? Can Ferrari continue building aggressively while the FIA keeps watching more closely? And maybe the most important question of all, can Fred Vasseur stop this situation from becoming another Ferrari collapse story? Because inside Formula One, perception changes incredibly fast. A few weeks ago, Ferrari looked innovative. Now, some rivals are quietly trying to paint them as controversial. A few weeks ago, the blown exhaust looked genius. Now, people inside the paddock are already discussing how Formula One might look without it. And that shift in narrative is dangerous. Because once the FIA believes a concept threatens the future direction of the sport, history shows they usually act eventually.